Welcome to Hendricks Chapel at Syracuse University. This is Music and Message, a weekly series that features musical performances and spoken reflection from a diversity of religious and spiritual perspectives. These gatherings seek to invite all learners into the fullness of life. And we begin by acknowledging with respect the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the indigenous peoples on whose ancestral lands Syracuse University now stands. Our theme for music and message this semester is beauty, brokenness. In the midst of unprecedented times, we explore the ways in which beauty can emerge from brokenness, and also how brokenness can be found within that which also seems to be beautiful. By exploring such paradox and tension, participants will explore the role of grief, joy, celebration, and sorrow within the human experience. Our speaker for today is Imam Amir Durich. Appointed in 2017, Imam Durich oversees the Muslim chaplaincy here at Syracuse University, an educational program supporting Muslim students, faculty, and staff. The goal of the chaplaincy is to create an inclusive community and to engage in sincere reflections that result in religious, intellectual, and social growth through educational programs and spiritual guidance based on Islamic principles. Imam Durich is also a visiting chaplain and lecturer on Islam at Crouse Health, New York State Office of Mental Health, and Upstate Medical University. In these roles, Durich supports patients and also educates the staff about the importance of religion and spirituality in the daily life of Muslims. Durich holds a bachelor's in Islamic studies from the University of Sarajevo, a master's in religious studies from Hartford Seminary, and is currently a PhD candidate in social sciences at the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs here at Syracuse University. Thank you for being with us both today and every day, Imam Durich. Today, as we explore our theme, not just through the spoken word, but also through song, we give thanks for those who are participating musically in our program. Lily Buckley, Eliana Kenningsberg, John Moses, Edward Nano, and Christopher Spinelli. And as always, we give thanks for the staff of Hendricks Chapel who are working to bring this program to thousands of students, faculty, staff, and alumni and friends. And of course, we are grateful to Dr. Annie Laver and Dr. Pepe Calvar from the Setner School of Music and the College of Visual and Performing Arts here at Syracuse University for their partnership and leadership. To all gathered, both here at Hendricks Chapel and those online, thank you for being with us.
Maker of earth and sky, your hands have set the heavens with stars, your fingers spread the mountains and plains. Lo, at your word the waters were formed, deep seas obey. now to us communion with you, hosts our abiding one. Come now to us and dwell with us. With you are found the gifts of life. Bless us with life that has no end, eternal life with you.
Hello, my name is Chris Spinelli, and today I'm going to be playing the Beethoven Sonata Opus 109, number 30, in E major. Now this is a very important sonata because it was written toward the end of Beethoven's life. And Beethoven is typically considered to be the bridge between the classical and romantic periods. And in order to do this, he had to break down certain structures. This piece, which is written in sonata allegro form, typically has a faster first movement, a slow lyrical second movement, and a very fast and vivacious third movement. But Beethoven broke down that structure on this piece. This first movement is slower, and it's got some really beautiful lyrical parts. The second is incredibly fast and vivacious, and the third is a theme of variations. Today, I'll be playing just the first two movements. This is Beethoven Sonata, Opus 109, number 30.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here today and to share my reflection. While exploring the ways in which beauty can emerge from brokenness, and also how brokenness can be found within that which is often perceived to be beautiful, I would like to start with a verse from the Quran that says, "Perhaps you dislike a thing, and it is good for you. And perhaps you love a thing, and it is bad for you. God knows while you know not." When I think about this verse, I think about a story or a movie with happy ending. It can take you through an array of emotions while reading the story or watching a movie, and only at the end things get settled and you feel joy and celebrate happiness of those involved in story or actors in the movie. A writer of that story or producer of a movie knew its ending from the beginning, but we had to experience the journey ourselves in order to fully understand it and celebrate that happy ending. Many times, this is the case with the story of our life. Our Creator knows that struggle, suffering, or brokenness will polish hidden raw gold of our life and prepare us to celebrate its finest form. However, it is very difficult to recognize jewelry while still in the process of polishing. It requires patience at least. I will walk us through a story of Joseph, which is one of the most beautiful stories in the Quran. Chapter 12 of the Quran is dedicated to a story of Yusuf or Joseph. In my opinion, it demonstrates paradox and tension between beauty and brokenness, but also joy and grief and celebration and sorrow. According to interpretations, Joseph was the most beautiful man that God ever created on the earth. However, as a child, he faced jealousy of his stepbrothers, who decided to get rid of him and decided to throw him in a well full of snakes, scorpions, and whatnot, with the thought that he will never survive. Although they expected fulfillment as they executed their plots, in reality their grief started there. As Dostoevsky said, that the crime is the biggest punishment. Yet grief and sorrow of Jacob, his father, starts, and eventually he lost his eyesight due to crying, because stepbrothers said that a wolf ate Joseph. Although it is hard to see any beauty based on this, a caravan from Egypt found him while seeking water and sold him to the chief minister of Egypt, the Aziz, where Joseph found his new home and enjoyed all beauties of his present life. And now we think his life is full of beauty. However, second phase came into his life. When he grew up, because of his beauty, the chief minister's wife was attracted to his beauty and tried to seduce him. But after he refused it, she accused that he tried to abuse her, and he ended up in prison. He didn't fall in depression, though. Instead, he built a good relationship with other inmates, interpreted their dreams, and taught them about the purpose of life and about their Creator. Then third phase came into his life. He spent years in prison while innocent. In the third phase, the king of Egypt had a confusing dream, and nobody of his advisors knew how to give interpretation to that dream. And one of his inmates was already out and serving the king, so he brought Joseph and his knowledge to king's attention. And after hearing the king's dream, Joseph laid out a plan for the economic success of Egypt over the next 15 years. Since this impressed the king, and he gave him the position of vizier or minister who used to oversee storehouses of the land. In addition to be an important position, this gave Joseph two opportunities. One was to call for justice and clarify that he was innocent in the case of the chief minister's wife. When king invited him to come out of prison and to serve on his advising board, he refused that, and he sent messenger and asked the king to first confirm that he is really innocent. And second opportunity that he got was that he got opportunity to meet his brothers who threw him in the well in his childhood, because they used to come there to secure food for their families. At first meeting with his brothers, they didn't recognize him, but he recognized them, and he worked out the plan how to bring the whole family together. When it happened, they realized who he was and started apologizing and asking for forgiveness. Joseph, though, didn't blame them, but their actions, which ignited mutual love and special family reunion. After years of brokenness, grief, and sorrow of the parents, feelings of guilt of Joseph, a feeling of guilt of Joseph's brothers, ups and downs in his own life, the full beauty emerged, because now they all lived really good and successful life in Egypt, which probably wouldn't happen if his brothers didn't decide to throw him in the well in first place. Out of many, I will emphasize a few lessons from this story. One of them is his moral character and his criteria of judgment throughout the whole story. And then his patience, his dedication, and his struggle for justice. Also, we recognize doing good even in prison. So while he fell in depression, he decided to teach in prison. He decided to share his knowledge. He decided to serve something that is more important. And we recognize distinguishing mistakes of people from their personalities, and we recognize theme of forgiveness. Interestingly enough, in his division of labor, Emil Durkheim mentions increase of happiness as a driving force of the individual to specialize more and to produce more. He argues that the division of labor advances under the influence of exclusively individual, social, and psychological causes. If we specialize, it is not to produce more, but it is to enable us to live in new conditions of existence that have been made for us, which Joseph really exemplified in this story. However, Emil Durkheim also argues that moral character is the essential part of the division of labor in order to achieve harmony and success, which Joseph again emphasized. The moral character as the criteria is especially important when jealousy, greed, and competition become motives of somebody's actions, as was the case with Joseph's stepbrothers. In contrast, Joseph never lost his moral criteria in sight of those around him, and he advocated in his words and actions for social integration and belonging while striving to achieve the purpose of life. Also, in his theory and book about suicide, Durkheim emphasized importance of social integration and finding your social group. And he argued that those who are integrated in a certain group, even being it that family or being that a community of belonging, they are less likely to commit suicide. And we see how it is important, especially when we have social upheavals, such as revolutions and wars, when they tend to rouse collective sentiments, stimulate partisan spirit and patriotism, political and national faith alike, and concentrating actively towards a single end, at least temporarily, cause a stronger integration in society, and they arise that sense of, ignite sense of belonging in us. At the end, I wanted to remind us that brokenness in most situations leads to growth, and it is its essential component. If we only engage in activities that come easily to us, we are not stretching ourselves. And if we don't stretch ourselves, we will never reach our full potential. If we find ourselves in a tough situation, sharing it with somebody and asking for help is not a shame. Instead, it is another strategy to overcome a big obstacle, which is very important, especially today when we struggle with some of issues, including our coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's very important that we have someone who can support us, who can share love, and who can emphasize that we have place of belonging. Through the process of struggling, we develop creative problem-solving skills. Without struggle, perhaps we will not be prepared to take on a responsibility or an opportunity that is right in front of us. Thus, through a struggle, we realize that obstacles are simply learning opportunities that foster growth of mindset and teaches us how to embrace obstacles instead of fearing and avoiding them. Brokenness teaches us to manage emotions like frustration, sadness, disappointment, and many times anger. We learn how to accept these feelings without judging them, because we will face them or other difficult emotions at different stages of our life. And lastly, brokenness often builds in us the mindset and skills that we need for a happy and successful life. I will end with the verse that I began with. It is that perhaps we dislike something and there is beauty in it and there is good for us. And sometimes we do love something and maybe there is something in there that is not good for us. God knows and we do not know. Thank you so much for your attention.
This final blessing is called Rough Translations. It's written by Jan Richardson in her book titled Circles of Grace, a book of blessings for the seasons. Rough Translations. Hope nonetheless. Hope despite. Hope regardless. Hope still. Hope where we had ceased to hope. Hope amid what threatens hope. Hope with those who feed our hope. Hope beyond what we had hoped. Hope that draws us past our limits. Hope that defies expectation. Hope that questions what we have known. Hope that makes a way where there is none. Hope that takes us past our fear. Hope that calls us into life. Hope that holds us beyond death. Hope that blesses those to come.
And be gracious